Welcome to Supply Chain Now, the voice of global supply chain. Supply Chain Now focuses on the best in the business for our worldwide audience, the people, the technologies, the best practices, and today's critical issues, the challenges and opportunities. Stay tuned to hear from those making global business happen right here on Supply Chain Now.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Scott Luton and Greg White here with you on Supply Chain Now. Welcome to today's show. Gregory, how we doing?
I'm doing great. How do you like our new frames here?
I'm
Beautiful,
a big
isn't it?
fan. I'm a big
Yeah.
fan. Of course, I'm a big Greg White fan, and that kind of spills over to wherever you're broadcasting from. But we've got a big show lined up today. Big guest. Greg, our featured guest, is with one of the world's most admired companies, where he is responsible for the company's distribution centers, logistics, transportation, and delivery services. So, Greg, we're talking about Lowe's and its 2,200 plus stores. No small feat, right?
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, they've been growing and doing great things in supply chain. I have actually had some interactions with them many years ago, and they have been working on their supply chain excellence for a long, long time. And I can verify as a customer that they have done a great job.
That makes two of us. And we're looking forward to kind of diving into some of the leadership and POV behind all of that. So on that note, I want to formally welcome in Mr. Don Frieson, Executive Vice President, Supply Chain with Lowe's.
Hey, good morning,
Hey.
Scott. Good morning, Greg.
Hey,
Good
Don, how are you?
morning, Don. How are you doing?
I'm doing well this morning. It's just great to be here with you guys.
We are too. You know, we've really enjoyed the pre-show conversation. As Greg's already kind of let the cat out of the bag, we're already fans and customers of Lowe's, and have had a lot of great experiences. So we're looking forward as fellow supply chain geeks to kind of dive into some of what goes on behind the scenes.
Well, we're excited to just talk a little bit about what's going on in the world of supply chain, and specifically all the great things that our supply chain associates are doing to move the business forward.
Love it. And that's what they do. People do certainly move our global supply chains forward, global retail organizations forward, and take care of the consumers. But before we get to that, before we get to all that heavy lifting, we talk about supply chain and Lowe's and beyond. Let's get to know Don Frieson a little bit better. So, Don, tell us, where did you grow up?
So I grew up in Memphis, Tennessee. So right Mississippi Delta, right on the Mississippi River. Fun fact, I have an identical twin brother.
Okay.
I'm Don, he's Ron.
Wow.
Right, yeah. So imagine growing up with an identical twin. So there's certain things I can't talk about, but other than that, we were it's a lot
Leave the
of
minds to
fun.
wonder.
Right, exactly. But
So
go ahead.
Don and Ron Frieson, were folks always wanting to know what the Frieson brothers were up to as you were growing up?
Always, absolutely always. But it's a good thing. My brother's a really good guy, and I can remember years ago, we actually lived in the same city for a while in Atlanta, and he had been there for some time. And when I moved to Atlanta, he says, "I need you to do two things for me, brother." I said, "What's that?" He says, "I need you to smile, and I need you to say hello to everybody," because oftentimes people thought I was Ron. So it's been fascinating to
So
grow
you
up.
had to carry his good name forward.
Exactly.
I love that. All right, one final question. Where is Ron today? What part of the world does he live in?
Ron is in Atlanta, Georgia. He's working with Children's Healthcare of Atlanta. He's their chief operating officer there. So he's doing a lot of good things, particularly during this period when healthcare is so premier in our country.
Okay. Wow. The
That's
Frieson
awesome.
brothers are getting stuff done. All right. One final note about growing up in Memphis. You know, we got to talk about food just a second. When you look when you look back at your upbringing and you think about food that was an integral part of it, what's a dish that comes to mind, Don?
Come on, Memphis barbecue. You
Barbecue.
gotta know it's Memphis barbecue.
That's what I thought. That's what I thought. I was going to let you say it though. And the sauce in Memphis, or is there no sauce? Is it all smoke?
Oh no, there's
No,
sauce. There's sauce.
so
And let me give all your viewers and listeners a tip. If you're in Memphis, you have to have Cozy Corner Barbecue. You talk
Love it.
about
I have
the
heard that.
best barbecue. Go to Cozy Corner.
So we're getting, man, we've already tackled my
This is an
checklist.
unpaid endorsement by Don
No
Price.
kidding.
Unpaid.
Cozy Corner. So folks, listen to that. It comes from folks that know. One of our favorite topics to talk about, Greg, barbecue. But let's kind of start to switch over to the professional side of Don's journey. So Don, as you alluded to pre-show, we're all big, supply chain nerds. We love the craft, as Greg and others have called it. We love the industry, love the people that make it happen, all the innovation and technology that's revolutionized it in many ways. But why did supply chain stick out and appeal to you? And where did you get your start?
Yeah, so it's been a lifelong journey. I'm almost afraid to tell you how long I've been in this game, 30 some odd years, and emphasis on the some odd. Actually started in college. I started my career as a package car helper my sophomore year of college with United Parcel Service. And what a great job for a college student. Got hired on for the holidays to, jump off of one end of the street, wheel packages, deliver them, and jump on. And fortunate for me, I'd done a pretty good job during that period. And I was called back in January and started to work in the hub on a variety of different roles, from car washer to preload. And it was just something about that. Now, this was before deregulation. So again, I'm showing my age here. And I had an opportunity to work with the over-the-road drivers by putting in their radios, hooking up their tractor to the trailer, and preparing for them to go out for the day. And just something that, boy, I looked at that and said, man, this is pretty neat. And it just became a passion for me. Years later, not very many years later, upon graduation, I went to work for a very large truckload carrier, Schneider National Carriers, and the journey then in earnest began.
So one quick follow-up
question. Did you
question.
go to school for? Yeah, go ahead.
No,
Business
I like
major.
that.
Yeah,
I like yours better, Greg.
Yeah, I was an operations management major with an emphasis. In that time, supply chain wasn't necessarily a big major like it is today, but clearly that's where my interest was.
So,
and where was that you went to school?
The University of Tennessee.
I wanted to make sure you got opportunity to say that, Don.
Absolutely. Haslam School of Business.
Well, and as we all know, that's become one of the go-to universities for supply chain management and folks that want to break out into the industry. One other quick follow-up question. You talked about your first role there, kind of getting on with UPS during the holidays. Has that memory of all that hard work, during a special time of year for so many and the people that enabled that to take place, has that stuck with you throughout your career?
It absolutely has, Scott. One of the things that resonates then and resonates now is the service piece of what we do in supply chain. Going to customers' home and whether they were signing for packages or not, and understanding that they were waiting on that and it was a timely factor with it. And then, of course, working with a company like UPS at the time where precision was everything. And so it just became part of, boy, this is what this piece of business is all about. It's about being efficient. It's about ensuring that you're doing the best you can at the lowest cost possible while providing the highest service levels. And that has been a cornerstone for me of growing in this supply chain world.
Wow, what a foundation. I'm about to turn over to Greg here as we kind of dive more into Lowe's and what you're up to now. But before we get there, I think one other really helpful piece of perspective and context is, after you graduated University of Tennessee, and what other supply chain roles that you moved into that really shaped your worldview and your leadership experience. Tell us a little more there.
Look, I've been so fortunate in my career. A very long career with Schneider National Carriers, and really cut my teeth in the trucking side of things. But then was recruited to Walmart stores, where I had an opportunity to lead the entire private truck fleet at Walmart, and then moving into core distribution, where I had responsibility for a series of warehouses to include ambient, non-ambient, and then actually for a while moved into the store side of the business. And so really got to see supply chain from a different perspective, even if you think about the back room of a retail establishment and all the supply chain principles that are within the back room and flowing to the sales floor. But probably one of the life-changing, career-changing opportunities came in an assignment that I was given in South Africa, where I spent 2 years in sub-Saharan South Africa with the acquisition that at the time Walmart has made as the chief integration officer, but having the opportunities to support the build out of a supply chain network within South Africa. And when you think about that, not nearly as advanced as what you see in the US. And so the difficulty, whether it was around the highway systems or connecting warehouses, just a really great opportunity to see something different and to understand that there's more than one way in which to, as I say, skin the cat. So what a wonderful experience that was for me.
Wow, Greg,
Wow.
there's so much there to follow up on, right?
There is. We've talked a lot about Africa and the difficulties there for, there's so many borders. The
Mm-hmm.
infrastructure is so
That's
outdated. We talk a lot about
yep.
infrastructure in the States, but we have roads. That's a good thing. And and there are just a lot of difficulties there. So I'm sure that was very striking and probably something you carry with you every day as you work in a relatively strong infrastructure environment.
Well, what it tells me is that here we can overcome anything. When you think about a breakdown here, we think about it in terms of hours, not days. And
Right,
if you're in,
right.
if you're in where you have poor infrastructure, you're talking days, and the
Right.
delays
Yeah.
could be
Or just leaving
massive.
it on the side of the road.
That's exactly right, and hoping that it's there when you
Yeah.
get back. So
Right.
yeah, just a totally different environment, but
Hey,
again, really educational.
one quick comment, Greg and Don, just elaborate here. Don, we do a series here at Supply Chain Now that focuses on supply chain leadership across Africa with Jenny Froome and our friends at SAPIX. And we had on several supply chain practitioners from Africa at the earliest parts of the vaccine distribution. And they were telling us that literally, here we think about strengthening bridges that cross all sorts of things here in the States. They were talking about how there are certain aspects of rivers and streams where there are no bridges, and they got to find a way to build those bridges. Both
Fordham. Yeah.
right, that's right, Greg. It's eye opening, really is.
Wow. It's a different
Yeah.
environment for
Yeah.
sure.
That is cool. That it's rare to get to have that kind of an impact on your professional career. So that's really impressive, and I'm glad to see you got to take some really cool stuff away from that. So now in your current role, Don, supply chain is really broad. It sounds like the trucking aspect of it was an initial focus for you, but what is your role as executive VP of supply chain? I mean, is it more broad than trucking now? It sounds like you got into distribution as well.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. When we think about and you guys know from your experiences and a lot of your past guests, supply chain for different companies mean different things, and there are different
Hmm.
functions that are within supply chain. Here at Lowe's, when we talk about supply chain, we talk not only about the distribution aspect, so all of our distribution centers, whether they be regional distribution centers, flatbed distribution centers are very important for us, given the commodities that we carry in our stores, our coastal holding facilities, because we are the fourth largest importer from a retail perspective in the U.S. So those facilities are extremely important to us. We also have bulk distribution centers as well as fulfillment centers. And we'll talk a little bit later about our omnichannel journey, but it's really important to us. But also included in that for us are our last mile delivery services. So if you think about deliveries to home, fun fact, we have already crested, in our fiscal year ends January 31st, over 12 million deliveries to homes this year. 12
Wow.
million. And so that's a lot of delivery capacity that we use on a year-to-year basis. So it's really, really, really kind of cool to see that coming to fruition. But we also have network planning and optimization, which is really important when we think about flow into our distribution centers from our inventory replenishment and planning teams. We have within our supply chain, we have an operations support area, which is really the backbone that helps us understand our processes. We think in terms of people, process, and technology within our business. And we have a group that's tailored to look at our business that way to make continuous improvements throughout our business each and every day. So it's very important. We have an engineering arm within our business that really looks at the technology and how we move goods through. And so our engineers, you think about normal industrial engineers doing time and motion studies and things of that sort, but we're also thinking about how do we keep our associates safe on a day-to-day basis, particularly within our distribution nodes. And clearly we have a cross-dock network, which is facilitating a lot of our home deliveries now. And that cross-dock network, quite frankly, is something that we're continuing to grow out. We just started it, quite frankly, in earnest this past year. But by the end of 2022, we'll be in half of our stores will be serviced through this network. And so it's a really big initiative for us. And so that's that in a nutshell is who we are from a supply chain perspective.
That's a big nutshell. I mean, I think, I think for, I think that what that really does for me is it really enunciates just how complex supply chain is, right? I mean, think about all those things that some of which you have been doing for a long time, some of them are relatively new, but all of them expanding as you continue to grow the organization and as consumer demand, as you spoke to in retail, continues to evolve. So it's really interesting, and it makes me ask this question, which I always think about in retail, and that is, you all have made such a huge investment in supply chain, and you continue to do so. What so many years ago triggered that investment that so many retailers are just starting to make now or in the last 18, 24 months because of crisis? What about your approach or your company's culture or philosophy had you guys getting so advanced with supply chain so much earlier than so many retailers?
Well, I don't know that we always view it that we were so much earlier. What I will tell you, Greg, is that it's omnichannel retail has really changed the way supply chain has to operate. Fulfillment is not the same as distribution. And when you start to think about how a customer wants to be served, it was really important that we take a step back and we took a look rather, at how are we serving the ultimate customers. Our stores and our associates in our stores every day do a fantastic job of serving the customer. And if you go back just 4 short years ago, everything that we delivered actually got delivered from a store. The
Right.
store was the center of everything. And it's just so much complexity, not only on the front end of serving the customer and ensuring that the store is in stock, but that back end work, whether it was around receiving, getting the deliveries out of the back door, the storage of goods
Right.
at store level. And so it was our goal to take some of that complexity out of our stores. And so it became very important as we think about it from an omni-channel perspective. If a customer orders, they don't really care if it's coming out of the back of the store or a warehouse or a cross
Right.
dock. And what we had
Right.
to do is look at it and really take a look at our cost and understand how can we best serve that customer while simultaneously taking that complexity out of the back of the store. And so that's the transformation journey that we're on. It's really about contribution margin, understanding how do you do, and I used this word earlier, most efficiently for
Yep.
us, our associates, and our customers. And so that indeed is the journey that we're on. And you guys know, like I know, that journey is never done. And
Never.
it's
No
never
finish line.
over. No, none whatsoever. It's just milestones that you hit and you go for the next milestone in that journey.
So
Wow.
I'm going to follow up
I
to
got to
that.
tell you.
Go ahead.
Okay.
You got to
Go
tell
ahead.
us.
You follow up first.
No,
I
because I'm
do
about
got
to
to tell
shift
you. I got to
gears.
tell you, Don. I think I've worked in the industry for a long time as a practitioner and as a service provider to technology, and I have seen so much advancement in hardware and automotive and other
Yeah.
relatively low margin, high volume industries. And I mean, I think it's every day for you because and this is the term we used on, because you've been with Lowe's for more than 2 decades. Huh? How about that? That way you don't give yourself up. Um, but I think because you've been with Lowe's so long, it's so matter of fact. But I have to tell you, it's very exceptional, the level of advancement that you all have brought. I can even compare it to other hardware or home improvement chains and organizations, both chains and dealer networks and that sort of thing. And I think what you're doing is very, very advanced. It may seem really standard pat for you, but it's a model for other companies to look to. And not that you need to congratulate yourself, but I would like to congratulate you because you guys are you have done so much so early and prior to the crisis. And I think that's really commendable. And I think it's a model that other companies could look at and really benefit themselves, whether it's omni-channel or whether it's just general store distribution or even, bulk goods distribution. I think there's a lot to be proud of there.
Well, first of all, thanks for the compliment. But the real compliment goes to our people. Our people we have a term we use here, and it's all in. And we work across every area of the business seamlessly. One of my, this leadership team is just absolutely incredible in terms of how we work together. I'll give a special credit to, whether it's our operations team, our merchandise team, our technology teams, because we all think about the customer and understanding that customer journey.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But not necessarily second to that, I'll say in addition to that, what's the associate journey like? And what are the things that our folks that are in the trenches day to day, whether they're in our stores or our distribution centers, what are they faced with? And we often talk about we've got to simplify, simplify, simplify. And so if you think
Yeah.
about it, what we try to do is make everything as simple as operating an iPhone. And we're not there yet. We want it intuitive. And we think if we can get our operations to that level of simplicity, then things go really well. And that
Yeah.
is the goal for us.
I love that. I love that focus on the voice of the
Yeah.
employee and the employee experience. And clearly, beyond the conversation we're having here with Don, if you go out and talk to those associates while they're in the store, it comes out in those conversations. I want to drill in a little bit into this omni-channel and what helps make that happen to meet the consumers where they want to be met, right? Because to your point, Don, they don't. Most consumers don't care about where it's coming from. They care about price and delivery and
That's
quality. Some combination of those three things. So fulfillment, right? You mentioned that earlier. This is a little bit dated figure, but I think it's still remarkable. In early March 2021, Lowe shared that fulfillment execution had improved 6x over March 2020.
Yep.
So how does that happen at Lowe's?
It happens by having a CEO that allows you to make investments in your business. If you go back 18 months ago, we had one fulfillment center, one. And we knew we had to accelerate that. Today we have 5 fulfillment centers. And that has made the biggest difference in securing what I call a minimum of 2-day service across the US, which is really important. And you guys know, like I know, fulfillment rate or time is really important to a customer. When they place an order, they want to know first thing, when will I get it? So whether it's, and then fulfilling that promise. So if you tell them it's 2 days, they'll take 2 days, but you better do it in 2 days.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I mean, we often talk about next day, same day, and you obviously have to play in that arena because that's very important for some of our customers, but just be reliable at what you say you're going to do. And that's what our teams are really focused on when we think about parcel fulfillment or even LTL fulfillment, because a lot of things that we carry are not parcel size or parcel eligible. They're ordering larger goods. Just get it there and get it there on time. And so that's the focus of the team. We've also incorporated some of the larger moves. So we've taken our core distribution network, like our regional distribution centers. We've enabled LTL capabilities to customer out of those facilities. And we have bulk distribution centers where we now have our much larger good. If you think about appliances, tub surrounds, grills, riding mowers, things that people don't necessarily have the capability to take home, but they would like to have it delivered. We're using those facilities like we never have in an effort to get it to the customer. So it continues to be a journey. I don't think we're great at it, but I think we are improving at it.
So Don, you might find some argument there and disagreement amongst here and other fans of Lowe's out there. One quick observation, and then I want to kind of go broader beyond Lowe's along the lines of what we're talking about. We've made this observation, and it's a very simple observation, but I still can't quite. It boggles my mind. We place orders these days largely on when do we get it, right? Versus what, Greg, 10 years ago, maybe, where that was largely, and for the most part, a big afterthought, right? It blows my mind just how far global supply chain and what it does to power that and optimize that customer experience has come. Greg, your quick response, and I'm going to dive a little deeper with Don in that area.
Yeah, well, I've always watched how long it gets here. Being a retailer, the reliability that Don spoke to is really, really important. I would rather have a longer but reliable lead time than a shorter one. So as a consumer, I played this game where I wouldn't pay for the quick delivery and realized that even though they promised 5 to 7 days, they'd still get it there in 3 to 5. Sorry, Don, I played that on you guys just like everybody else. But the truth is, I think it's been a nascent want of consumers. We've always wanted it right now. That's why we had stores, right? Those times when we lived in a remote place, like some of us do now, and you just can't run out to a store. It's 45 minutes away or whatever it is. That's when things like delivery become important, but the desire to get it immediately is still there. And I think retailers have recognized that more than driven that. And certain retailers have enabled that, which has caused a demand on the rest of retailers to be able to do so. But yeah, I think, the consumer wants what they want. They want it now. They want it at the price they want it, and they want it in good condition and in full, to Don and your point.
Well,
and always have, but we've had to settle in the past.
Right.
Now we don't have to settle. And it's great to see organizations stepping up to that.
Well, look,
That's a
look, guys.
fair clarification.
Like
Don,
I
go ahead.
know. Like I know that consumer sentiment is that every year the expectations get higher and higher relative to how they want their goods, and whether they're ordering from an iPhone, a laptop, any mobile device. It's just that immediacy that is part of our society today. And if you aren't in that game, then you are not being competitive.
Mm.
And I think that's the real key, is that if you want to be competitive, then you just got to jump in there and understand, how do you execute against that. I think the biggest thing for most companies is, how do you do it in a profitable way?
Mm.
Because at the end of the
Hmm.
day, you can lose a lot of money if you don't really think through, what node does this item need to be in an effort to be next day. Do I deliver next day out of my store? Because out of 2,200 units across the US and Canada, am I closer to or within that zip code? Are there certain items that you offer next day, same day on, that makes sense for you and the contribution margin works, versus offering a next day and I have to try to ship it 500 plus miles? It doesn't, the math just doesn't work. And so
Right.
it's a
Hmm.
constant looking at the algorithms and understanding your sourcing engines, and having the right merchandise in the right place that's going to fulfill the customer. And, when you think about technology, that, let's face it, Greg, years ago, we didn't talk about AI. We didn't talk about machine learning. And
Right.
now,
Right. AI
we
was
just did.
actual intelligence, Don, not artificial.
Exactly. Exactly. And
Right.
these days, it's all pulling all that data together to understand what ships with what, in most cases, and how do you create those baskets in terms of where you
Hmm.
put your merchandise, right, in order to ship it. So that those are all that data, and pulling it together, which again is something that's relatively new to everyone. And there are a lot of companies out there that can help you do that. But at the end of the day, that's how you have to lean in an effort to meet the customer's expectation.
Well, okay. So you've essentially, to a large degree, spoke to the next question I'm going to ask you. But one quick comment. So I guess y'all cannot relate to me as a kid when I was placing orders for cassettes and comic books, and by the time they got here 8 months later, it seemed I'd forgotten I'd even ordered them. So maybe I'm the only person in that boat. But anyway,
The only
I love
thing
what
that's
you.
changed there, Scott, is that happens within 3 days now. People forgot
Right.
what they ordered within 3 days instead of 8 months.
The power of supply chain. So to that, so kidding aside,
Yep.
and Don, I really appreciate what you shared just a moment ago, because that leads to you're already making the case, as we all know, about that critical role that supply chain plays in not just optimizing customer experience, the CX movement that's been taking place for years now, just called maybe something different. Um, but that's what powers this modern retail environment. So,
Yes.
so speak a little bit more to that, Don, if you would.
Yeah, so for us, when we think about CSAT scores, or customer satisfaction scores, or likelihood to recommend, or whatever measurements that companies use today, that really becomes the basis of how you start to set your service offering. Because it's really, really, really important that when that customer has that great experience with you, they come back
Mm.
and they tell other people. Now, the other side of that is, when they don't have a great customer experience, they also tell others. And so that's better than any advertising that you could have. And so it is really important for us, and we talk about it on the delivery side of our business all the time. You got to treat every delivery like it's the first delivery, or treat it like it's the last. It's
Mm.
really important that we execute, and execute flawlessly, because it means so much to the customer. And so as we take a look, whether it's inside of our stores, we operate on what we call smart customer service. And it starts with that, S starts for seek. We are looking for a customer in that store. So don't be so dependent on doing tasks, because the customer is the reason why we're there. And so seek out that
Hmm.
customer, understand more about the project that they're working on, what exactly. So it's more than just, hello, how are you? It's really getting into a deep understanding of why they're there. Because look, they're spending dollars on their home.
Right.
And that is the largest investment that any of us will make. And it's so near and dear to you. So whether it's a small project, like I'm hanging pictures and I need the right size picture hangers, or I'm doing a bathroom remodel and I
Right.
really want to know how to lay this tile if I'm trying to do it myself. Our teams have to lean in to ensure that we're meeting that customer's needs. And so those are the things when you start thinking about customer satisfaction and CX, it is so important that you become part of their project.
I love that, Don. And just a side note, my dear wife, lovely wife, Amanda, would not let me touch any of those two projects you mentioned, or much less anything else. Holes in walls, wrong measurements. That's what I'm known for around here. All right. So Greg, there's so much. This is kind of like a master class. You know, every once in a while
It
we get a
is
master
really.
class kind of in supply chain. Don's giving us that here. Where are we going next, Gregory?
Well, I want to know, since you've been in the industry and particularly at Lowe's for more than 2 decades,
Well, let me
you must have
clarify.
had.
Let me clarify because here I've been in the industry a long time. We had a leadership team refresh approximately 3.5 years ago, and I actually came aboard as part of that leadership team refresh.
Oh,
And
got it.
so I was,
Okay.
yeah, so I was able to take years and years of experience and come into Lowe's, and quite frankly, love what I saw when I got here, particularly around the folks in supply chain. I use three words, and this is how I describe our teams: dedicated, resourceful, and resilient. And
Mm.
that's never been
Mm,
more true since the pandemic. And that's the way our frontline associates approach this business each and every day, as well as our store support associates. But what's been great is that we've been able to look at where was the business and where did the business need to go. And as we've come up with what we call our roadmap to excellence, going from good to great, and you guys know that story very well for a lot of
hmm
other companies, that's the journey that we're on. And so it's been really, really fun to take our core team that was here and that, to your point, Greg, had done this for so many years, and really
Right.
the evolution of Lowe's supply chain and where we are in the industry, and take some leaders that we brought in over the course of the last 3 years, bring all that knowledge together. And it has been a blast in terms of learning, a blast in terms of how we're moving this business forward. And I'm just so excited to be a part of it.
You got to face the brutal facts, right? That's one of the things. That's one of the keys of good to great, right? So I bet you've done a lot of facing of that in the last 3 years. But over your career, I mean, you've had so many opportunities at so many places to have kind of breakthrough moments, eureka moments, if you want to call them that. Give us an idea of something that just has really struck you in the last 3 years.
Sure. And guys, I would tell you, and 1 year in, and then a pandemic hits. And
Wow.
I'm sure a lot of supply chain teams can tell you about dozens of eureka moments that have happened. I mean, if you think about, we were very fortunate as a retailer to be named an essential retailer when the pandemic started. And so while a lot of retailers, if you think about apparel and others that had to temporarily shut down, we kept going. And only through the grace of those frontline associates in our business that in the early days really, really focused on how do we keep our sales safe? How do we keep our associates safe while serving those needs? I mean, if you think about it, if you're dependent on medicine that needs refrigeration and your refrigerator doesn't work, you got to go get a refrigerator.
Right.
Nobody can live in a
Hmm.
home with a toilet that's broken. So it's all those essential kind of things that we brought to bear that we were able to keep our business going. Now, the interesting thing about that is that as the supply side started to wane and we saw real focus on a lack of supply, particularly in those fast moving items. My supply chain felt like one big cross dock. Man, I'd get it in, it'd get in the store, and it'd flow out the other side. I mean, I don't know that the teams had a lot of time to stock it. And so, you're looking at your in-stock levels, you're not very pleased with it, but you understand that everything's just moving through to where we are this year, where supply's a little bit better, and we've had to pivot a little bit. And so these have been moments where we continue to reinvent ourselves. We continue to think about how is it that we do things better. I mean, the big question I always get from my peers in the leadership team is, what did you learn in 2020? What did you learn in 2021 that you would take into 2022? And so it's constantly going back, doing an autopsy of what the year was like. What are the things that we need to change in an effort to continue to not only grow our business, but to increase our customer satisfaction?
Greg?
Yeah, I think there have, as you said, Don, been a ton of learnings around this pandemic. Most of the learning for a lot of companies was we didn't have a strong enough, if you want to call it, supply chain ethic. And I think that you all had not only an ethic, but an initiative going on. And I'm curious, as you think about this, so imagine this, not just joining a new company, but graduating from college with a supply chain degree, or going into college with a supply chain degree, or coming out and getting into the job world. And we have a ton of our community that are, recent graduates, or recently in, or seeking to be in the supply chain trade. Give me an idea of maybe a key tenet or a key bit of knowledge that they should all have as they get into this industry.
Well, look, I'd say that as they come into the industry, and by the way, they've chosen a great industry. And, this is actually
Agreed.
a really good time to enter the industry. When you see that supply chain leads every news story every week, whether it's the pileup at the ports or anything of that sort, it's a problem-solving industry right now. I will tell you that their mindset needs to be one around flexibility, understanding that what worked yesterday just may not work today. And
Mm.
ultimately understanding that I've got to go solve this issue. And what are all the tools that I've learned in school, the practical experience that I may have if I'm moving forward in supply chain with an advanced degree? What are those things and experiences that I can take, and how can I apply them to the current situation? I'm a big proponent of on the ground leadership. Previously I was a big, and I say previous to the pandemic, coaching by walking around. Love to get out of my office, love to get out into the field and really understand what are the teams working on, what are the barriers that they have to being great. And because the pandemic has slowed some of that down, it's now that I have to think about, how do you engage in a different way? And so as people enter that, the engagement levels are a little bit different. You have to
Right.
be creative, whether it's through mediums like this. We use Microsoft Teams, so no plug for Microsoft, just a way of obviously understanding how we communicate to those in a remote environment, and how do you stay connected? And that is the big challenge, I think, for not only supply chain, but all of workplaces now that are perhaps remote, semi-remote, or a combination of both.
Okay, Don, I wish we had 3 more hours with you, because I think we could pick your brain further and solve some of industry's biggest challenges. But I love the story, and I love your you're not calling it, but I hear real, actual, in person, there for the team leadership. And gosh, if anything has gotten us through these last few years in supply chain and otherwise, it's been a lot of that. So I want to shift gears as our time with you is starting to wind down, and I'm sure you've got a busy calendar here today. One of our favorite things here at Supply Chain Now is, that give forward, as Greg has coined it, right? that do good with action, right? With lots of action. Even if you can't give a lot, hey, give a little, but just start giving. As Greg, I'm stealing your advice there. Lowe's does a ton in the communities. That's, I've been, growing up in Aiken, South Carolina. I think we had 1 or 2 stores there. Been around Lowe's a long time, and here just recently, one of the recent examples, those terrible storms that came through the U.S. In December. I think Lowe's wrote a check for about $1 million to help provide relief for tornado victims. That's just one of the latest activities there. So, touch on this Hometown 100 initiative. This is really feel good, do good stuff. Tell us about this.
Yeah, so it's really just the natural evolution of what we've done since Lowe's was founded. Last year we celebrated our 100th anniversary as a company, and in conjunction with our marketing team, the thought was, you know what, we do projects in communities each and every day. And our stores have the latitude, our distribution centers have the latitude to work with first responder organizations and just support the community. And this was a way to formalize that, to recognize our 100 years in business. So it's 100 hometown initiatives. And we chose over 100 cities, and there's actually over 100 opportunities out there to go out in the community and actually share time on projects with these communities. Our associates gave of their time, and so it wasn't as though it was an extra paid thing. It's just what they do. And we donated in terms of resources and supplies, and a couple of them hit home with me. I told you guys I'm a Memphis boy, and we had an opportunity to go to Memphis to work with the Alzheimer and Dementia Center of Memphis. And I flew into Memphis and, man, put my gloves on and got busy with the kind of paint up, fix up project within that center because the folks just do great work in these communities. And you recognize that as retail, you are local and you are part of the community. The folks that work in your stores are part of that community. And so it's so important. I mean, it's just in our DNA. And so it's been a really great thing for us. And there are so many opportunities for us to create opportunities. And that's what our 100 hometown initiatives have done. And so from our chairman and CEO personally participating in projects, to everyone through the leadership team, to our associates in our stores and our distribution centers, I can tell you we all enjoyed that. And quite frankly, we'll continue to do that in a somewhat informal manner because, again, it's just who we are.
Don, I love that. Greg, I'm going to get your reaction to that before we make sure folks know how to connect with Don and the Lowe's team. Greg, what strikes you there?
I think the recognition that retail is local is critical because you are part of this. I was flashing through my mind, having worked in stores in a retail chain, just how local it can be. I used to serve coffee and egg burritos to people in the neighborhood around my store, and it's not just good for the community; it's good for business. Right. And I that's kind of why I love these Give Forward initiatives, is because people recognize the genuine nature of these initiatives, and it is good for the business, doing well by doing good, right? It's a classic term, but this is a great way to do it. And I particularly appreciate that, from Don's perspective, that it's not even about getting back from the community. It's what you owe to the community by being part of it. So that's an important perspective for a retail company to have.
Love that. I also love how Don concluded his answer there. It's who we are. It is who we are. It's how we do business. It's in our DNA. All right. So, Don, really have enjoyed your time here today on Supply Chain Now. As busy as you are, appreciate all the time and perspective and point of view you've given us. I think we can learn a lot from what you've shared here today and from basically how you do business. So, Don, if folks are curious, whether it's about the Hometown 100 or any of the other aspects of the Lowe's business, how can folks learn more?
Well, look, obviously Lowes.com is a good place to go and understand under the PR tab. You can see all the great things that we're doing and can be part of. You can actually connect with me. I'm on LinkedIn, so happy to connect in that area. And quite frankly, for those students that are out there that are thinking about careers, you got jobs.lowes.com that you can go out and see all the available opportunities. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say look under supply chain to understand what opportunities are there, because we're always looking for great people to join our business and to help us continue our transformation. And so we're really excited about that. And guys, I'd be really remiss in not saying thank you for what you guys do for the supply chain community. You know, it's one thing to, as practitioners, and you guys have done a great job of highlighting all the great things that go on within the different supply chains. And again, we know that takes on a lot of different meanings for a lot of different people, and you guys do a really great job of drilling down into it. And so thank you for being such a supporter of what we do.
Thank you, Don. And you started your interview off. It's about the people. It's about the team. Greg and I get a chance to be in front of the camera more often, but man, we got a home run team that makes it happen. So Don, gosh, if that's not some good news that will brighten anyone's day, and you get better, right? You get better, just like you pointed out. There's no finish line, right? One of the big thanks to Don Frieson, Executive Vice President, Supply Chain with Lowe's. Don, hope you have a home run 2022, and we'll have to have you back on really soon.
So a couple of things. So if you want to just get in touch with me, I have a LinkedIn profile out there. So guys, just look me up and hit me up on LinkedIn. Be happy to respond. If you're looking for an opportunity, particularly in supply chain, go to jobs.lowes.com. And there's a supply chain tab there that you can click on, or other pieces of the business. So clearly, we're always looking for great talent in our transformation journey. And so it's just been a real blast spending this time with you guys. And thank you.
You bet. Big thanks. Big thanks. This masterclass in supply chain, retail, and leadership, and a lot more. Big thanks to Don Frieson, Executive Vice President for Supply Chain with Lowe's. Thank you, Don.
Thank you.
All righty. All right. So, Greg, man, who wouldn't want to work for Don? I mean, that's the kind of individual that will have you ready to run through walls back behind us, right?
Well, clearly, in the last 3 years, he and the team have had a great impact on the organization. As I said, that's an organization that's been ahead of the curve for a lot of years. Anyway, I know they probably don't feel like it. And as we talked about, they've probably had to face the brutal fact, which is one of the principles of good to great, in case everybody hasn't read the book. And if you haven't, read it. But they have always been a really, really strong and committed organization, and they continue to, as he said, they continue to grow, right? They're never done. So I think that's inspirational to me. I had some flashback moments in talking to Don and going, gosh, I miss doing this or I miss doing that. And it's good. I mean, it's good. Don't you think? Yeah, hell yeah. I'd love to work for that guy.
I love it. I love Don's POV here today. And I got to go back to, it's who we are. It's in our DNA. This is how we do business, right? That is such a powerful, when you got the right culture, man, that's just a force multiplier. So big thanks to Don and the whole team over at Lowe's that helped us make today's interview happen. Okay, Greg, wonderful conversation. We got a lot more teed up for 2022. So folks, if you check out Supply Chain Now, buckle up and get ready, as Greg would say, because we got a lot more good stuff, just like this conversation with Don coming at you. But hey, if you didn't get 18 pages of notes like I've got here from our conversation, including our barbecue recommendation in Memphis, Tennessee, Cozy Corner, you got to check that out. If you take anything away, you got to take Don's spirit of getting stuff done and getting stuff done better, right? GSD, do good, give forward. Be the change that's needed. And on that note, we'll see you back next time right here at Supply Chain Now. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for being a part of our Supply Chain Now community. Check out all of our programming at supplychainnow.com and make sure you subscribe to Supply Chain Now anywhere you listen to podcasts. And follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram. See you next time on Supply Chain Now.